This one's for the 2 to 11-year-olds. Battle of the Network shows. Join Rick Brooks and Mike Kogel as they explore the TV of the 70s and 80s through hand-picked episodes of their favorite and not-so-favorite series.
Welcome to Battle of the Network shows. I'm Mike.
And I'm Rick. Hello, everyone.
And me, Cookie Monster.
Hello, Cookie.
Hello, Rick.
Pleasant surprise to see you here.
Me old day cookies.
Ah, well.
You talking about Sesame Street? Me from Sesame Street.
Yes, you are from Sesame Street. A vital part of Sesame Street.
Me looking you right in the eye.
Yes. I'm looking at you in one of your eyes, I think.
Yeah.
It's difficult to find them, but...
Me old Cookie Monster. Me have massive underbite.
So, we're talking about Sesame Street, and I have here a vintage from my childhood, a little Cookie Monster hand puppet.
Yeah.
He's got a hole in his head, too.
Yeah, he does, but...
He's pretty cool.
He's in pretty good shape.
Otherwise, yeah, there was a point when we were kids, my brother and I would sometimes wear him on our head.
I like what add to the wear and tear.
Yeah.
I mean, hand puppets probably don't wear as well as maybe some other stuffed animals do.
Yeah, trying to see if it had a copyright date on it.
He's recognizably Cookie Monster, though, that's for sure.
And my vintage Kermit, who hung out with us for the Muppet Show, too.
Yeah. Nice, making his return to the podcast.
Yep, and some more recent Bert and Ernie.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Hooper action figure.
Ah, yes.
New Super 7. And then you have some vintage stuff, those lorries, right?
Yes, this is from Laurie's collection. An assortment of Fisher-Price, Little People, Sesame Street characters.
Got at least Oscar's trash can.
Yes, he's in there somewhere.
Is he in there? Okay.
You can open him up, yeah. He pops up.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't stay up, but he makes an appearance.
Well, you kind of felt like there was a catch. There you go.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
It still works nice.
And yeah, we have Big Bird, a Mr. Hooper, Cookie Monster.
Hello, me.
Susan?
Yeah, I believe that's Susan, yeah.
Something I can't see.
Oh, yes.
Big Bird says it's there, but...
Don't get me started on that. That's my least favorite storyline in the history of Sesame Street.
Your least favorite 10 to 15 year storyline?
Yes. That always drove me crazy. As you well know, I don't like plot lines where somebody can see a character who obviously exists.
That's right.
And everybody else, can't see him. That would have been good for one episode.
Right.
But even as a kid, that annoyed me.
Snuffleupagus, Bert, Ernie, and a newer Oscar.
Yeah, that's a newer Oscar the Grouch.
Yeah. Gotta give it to Sesame Street. They're good at the merchandising.
Yeah, and deservedly so. I'm glad they get some merchandising income.
Yeah.
They deserve the fruits of their labor.
And, expensive show. It's taken us a long time to get to this one.
It has, yeah. I mean, I don't know, it seems like it's probably come up as soon as we started doing the podcast, but for various reasons, we haven't gotten to it. But
we might have waited a little bit too long in terms of availability of stuff, but we did manage to get here and find our way to Sesame Street. Not everybody knows their way to Sesame Street.
I do know my way to Sesame Street. After just today watching an old segment with Dawn Music, one of my most favorite forgotten characters, with Kermit interviewing him, and he's rewriting the theme song to Sesame Street.
Oh. And
Kermit suggests, because, and he can't rhyme, they go with Yosemite Park, Yosemite National Park, and it's good. But anyways, they work around to Sesame Street, but it reminded me of kind of my own journey to Sesame Street, just watching it. Dawn Music is very inspirational.
Is he
tortured genius composer?
Yes, kind of a Guy Smiley doppelganger.
Yeah, a little bit. He's got glasses though, and he always bangs his head against the piano.
Yeah.
In frustration. A tortured artist, to be sure.
Yeah, I do remember him now.
Yeah, I think he's one. Maybe the banging the head against the piano might have been why they phased him out.
Didn't meet educational goals.
No, didn't.
Someone wrote an SG letter.
Yes.
Dawn Music, Rosie the cowgirl, lassoing everybody.
Yeah.
Maybe Forgetful Jones.
Yeah, he's another one I enjoyed him. Then there's some that I haven't watched the show in years, and I know they've changed the show dramatically.
Yeah.
It's a shorter program, so a lot of these characters aren't going to find airtime anyway. But like I always liked Sherlock Hemlock.
Yeah. I had a Sherlock Hemlock match game.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I had different characters under them.
Good test of your wits, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Match wits with Sherlock Hemlock.
That's right. I just learned yesterday that this is not a Muppet character, but the the guy who goes around painting stuff, painting numbers on things, Mr. Bentley.
Oh,
Paul Benedict.
yes, I saw him in a different segment. I think he shows up in like a counting segment or something, just like a glimpse of him. Maybe it's the same character.
It probably is.
Oh, okay.
The one I watched, he was looking to paint a number 6 on things, and he ended up painting it on a cake with the baker character who stumbles downstairs a lot.
Yeah.
And then the baker sliced up the cake and then smashed it in his face.
Nice.
But I'm like, this face, I know this face.
Ah.
But he also looks like a lot of like British actors, so it's like, maybe I'm just, and I had to look it up. And I was glad to learn that.
Yeah.
Paul Benedict was even more of a part of my childhood than I remembered.
Yeah. I like that you were probably more impressed by Paul Benedict than like many of the like high profile A-list celebrities that have been on the show over the years. They're like, yeah, they were on, but Paul Benedict was on too as a regular.
Yeah, Stevie Wonder, whatever. Jesse Jackson.
Yeah.
I mean, I have fond memories of Sesame Street. I mean, Sesame Street was a huge part of my childhood.
Yeah, mine too. I don't know exactly how long I watched it, but I probably was watching it virtually every day for a while. And I noticed like, Lori really watched it too, and she seems to have like stronger memories of certain segments than I did. So it's a huge part of her life as well. But yeah, I don't, it's been around as long as I have and always a big part of the TV landscape. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know now for reasons if I remember segments from seeing them then or seeing them later, but, and sometimes it's a mix. But there was one I saw on a different episode than we're going to talk about that I was happy to see because I remember hearing it on a record I had where Ernie brings a plate of chocolate chip cookies to his bed, and Bert gets on his case about it. That, he's going to get crumbs in his sheets, and then they're going to get in his pajamas, and then he's going to itch, and he sees the sense in that, and so then he goes over to gets in Bert's bed to eat them there. And I just distinctly remember that from this record. I don't know what record because I tried to look it up, and there are so many records that it's just like a needle in a haystack. So
I think I might have had like a 10th anniversary record or something. But I know I had some out records. I had books, all kinds of stuff when I was a kid. I was a very small child, but yeah. Sesame was always there.
And of course, we were watching it, and presumably in the same time the Muppet Show was on. So it was a Muppet Sant.
Yeah.
Now, the astounding thing to me is that for like 20, 30 years, they were doing 130 episodes a week, or a year, a week. And some seasons they did, at least one season they did 145.
Wow.
And so the first, season 30 was the first season they did less than 130 episodes.
Wow. So I'm assuming there was a bit of a ramp up too, like because like there were so many animation segments. So I'm assuming once they had a backlog that they could fill in like with the street scenes with some of the other stuff. Because like in the first couple years, there was no way they were cranking out that many. I would think.
I would think, so. Or they repeated a lot of stuff. Like even I think if you watch the first episode, there's like a 10-minute segment that gets repeated twice of just like kids running around a junkyard or some insane thing like that. Or cows or something, And of course, that's part of how they did it. They repeated a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But still, you have to assemble all that, and you have to still film the parts that you do film. And it seems like in watching some older episodes, like you said, the street scene was a lot less narrative than it became later. Like some of them are just, I watched one called Louise Hires Maria at the Fix-It Shop. And I thought, oh, well, this is a really important episode.
Yeah.
And it was just like one scene. She went in looking for a job. He was busy. She fixed a few things. And he's like, okay, kid.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. There's the milestone episode right there.
So, but that still takes effort.
Yeah, regardless. I mean, what a contrast, too, to at a time when, like, Saturday morning television in that era, maybe do 13 episodes a season and then just repeat those.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, like the only, like talk shows and game shows, of course, do lots of episodes. But, that's a different beast.
To do scripted television at that rate is very impressive.
With puppets, which is a very technical thing. And, of course, as it went on, like when the Muppets became a much more popular thing, then, that whole crew of people was dividing their time, too, between their own work and coming to do Sesame Street.
Yeah, and animation, original music and songs.
Yeah,
I mean, all
live
kinds
action
of
films.
Stuff. Yeah, all kinds of production elements going in, and they were consistent. They didn't take like hiatuses. I mean, they would show reruns of full episodes, but they wouldn't like come back, go off the air for 6 months and then come back.
No, I don't think so.
They're year round, like in those time slots on PBS stations, I think.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I wonder how the math that is, but I mean, I'm sure there were repeats during the week or something, but not as many.
Yeah.
You would think, or Mr. Rogers, of course, had a lot of episodes, but they they took breaks, long break, and there was only a half hour, right? So, I mean, just that as an accomplishment, but becoming this cultural phenomenon, the fact that they've found ways to stick around for 55 years.
It is impressive in the fact that they began it with, goals beyond just like drawing television ratings. And, they had educational goals.
Yeah.
And they were trying to accomplish something as far as like furthering the advancement of young people and getting them, started on the way to learning in school.
Yeah.
I mean, just it's amazing achievement that they were able to build this incredibly entertaining program that's persisted for years with an educational goal. I mean,
Yes.
It sounds crazy to say that, but you don't think of a lot of TV designed for a specific purpose like that to be as enduring. You would think, well, it's more shows that for purely entertainment purposes. I mean, we've talked about like news and information shows, but we haven't talked about a lot of like really educational shows, I don't think, on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, 3-2-1 Contact, and Mr. Rogers, and that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah, they're PBS.
And G.I. Joe.
Yeah, of course. Well, I learned a lot
E-Man.
from G.I. Joe. And the baseball bunch. I learned a lot from the
that's
baseball
right,
bunch,
yeah.
too.
But yeah, at the time, it was this revolutionary concept to use TV for something other than selling stuff.
Yeah, even within public broadcasting system,
Yeah.
it wasn't a slam dunk that this would work.
No.
Or that would get funding and everything. But yet, it was clearly the only outlet that could support this for as long as it has in the style that it has, that it survived. I mean, it was years before it even had like sponsors at the beginning, like legit sponsors. I mean, when we were growing up, I can't remember when they first introduced like
underwriters.
Yeah, underwriters is
Yeah.
the word. Yeah, but I don't remember any kind of message like that when I was growing up watching it.
No. I wonder. Yeah, I don't know how prevalent that was in PBS at first either.
Yeah.
Or if it just started to become that way, partly to distance itself from having government funding, or all of that is complicated. We both watched the documentary Street Gang, and they do mention that the budget for the first season was, in 1969, was $8 million, or the equivalent of $56 million a few years ago.
Yeah.
And that's kind of astounding. No wonder they had to do merchandise.
Yeah.
If that's the kind of budget you have.
Yeah, because you don't have, I mean, there's pledging, but you don't have like a steady, consistent income stream at all. You have no revenue stream, and the expenses aren't going down.
Right.
So, yeah. Yeah, the Street Gang is a very interesting documentary, and I believe it's, what's its subtitles like? How I Got My Way to Sesame, or How We Got Our Way to Sesame Street.
I think so, yeah. It's
Something
based
like
on a book.
So it's essentially the origin story of Sesame Street.
Yes, and it actually cuts off pretty much at the end of our era.
Yeah,
with Jim Henson's death.
So if you're worried about, the modern time, let's just say it like it is, Elmo.
Yeah.
Elmo is not in the documentary.
Nope.
You can watch this and learn how this show developed and the key milestones of the show without seeing a lot of Elmo.
And the key figures. I mean, everybody thinks of Jim Henson, of course, because of the Muppets, but without diminishing his input, it certainly makes a case for a few other people. I'm forgetting the guy.
John Stone?
John Stone, biggest, and Joan Gans Cooney. And then there was the Lawrence
Morissette?
Yeah, something like that.
The guy from
Carnegie.
with Carnegie Foundation that worked to get the show launched.
Right. So he sort of had this notion that maybe TV could educate kids. And he was talking to Joan Cooney at a dinner party, and she was already a TV producer, and brought it up to her, and she sort of started to formulate this idea that you could combine entertainment and education in this way, in some way, and then got people like John Stone, who was also a seasoned TV veteran, to come in, and he knew Jim Henson and brought him in eventually. And obviously there were other people too, but like one of the thrusts of the documentary is that John Stone, who was the executive producer and director of many episodes and a writer, was maybe is a bit of an unsung hero.
Yeah, and you might be skeptical of that at first. Like I found him to be a fascinating person.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I'm surprised I don't know more about this guy. And maybe because he was, it's possible that the reason we don't know more about him is because he was so linked to that show for so long. So like you don't know much about what he did before, and then he hit his stride with Sesame Street, and Sesame Street doesn't get a lot of mainstream attention because it's seen as a kid show, right? So there's that. And you might think, well, they got his daughters to participate, and everything, and it's this based on this book. But you see a lot of like the archival footage in that documentary, and he's there all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's clear that he's like the guiding creative force behind it. I mean, it doesn't, take a big leap of faith to see that that's the case.
Yeah, and I haven't finished watching it, but I started watching that new Jim Henson documentary that Ron Howard directed. And so the Sesame Street segment, or even before that, there's some footage from a documentary that Henson was involved in called Youth 1968, and John Stone was also, I think he directed it. I forget the exact credits on that, but it was nice to see, like, okay. And even though you can tell, like, you see in that documentary, some of Henson's experimental films and stuff, and you're like, okay, his vision was an influence not just on the Muppets, but so was John stone, and corralling all that talent. I think it's really nice that documentary puts him up there. Mm-hmm. I didn't rewatch it, but I can also recommend the I Am Big Bird about Carol Spinney.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
That kind of fits in with this, and the Mr. Rogers documentary, and just all these really good and kind of moving documentaries about children's television.
Yeah, I mean, in the show, I think you and I both had like an emotional connection to the show, and kind of watching that documentary and kind of reliving some of the old episodes. I have that emotional connection still. It has just had a unique relationship because just the blend of all these elements and the fact that the live action actors, we saw them every day, and there were these like Muppets that we had stuffed animals of, we played with, we had hand puppets of, so it had that real link to us, hitting us at such a key age that I still feel that pull, when I see these characters in the show. Yeah,
I have that fondness for the adults, the humans. I can kind of remember, and I sort of when Mr. Hooper, when the actor died, I was too old for Sesame Street, but I remember hearing about that somewhat. I knew it, but then years later, like in that documentary, seeing clips, and I've seen the episode, where they deal with that, and it gets me every time.
Yeah.
It really is an amazing piece of television, and just showing you, okay, Big Bird is one of the greatest characters ever, as far as just like getting emotion across in a real way, but it's still this incredible puppet.
And it's brilliant the way that's done too, because it's like Big Bird is sort of like at the center of it, but the way that seeing the human actors react, and the one thing that struck me about it, seeing scenes again watching the documentary, was that it's just they're looking around to each other because they don't know how to respond to him exactly, and they're kind of groping for ways to communicate it to him. And just that sort of like discomfort that they feel, but at the same time knowing they have to say something, and just kind of looking to each other and trying to get comfort in each other. That's very moving too. Yeah, the whole thing was brilliant. Yeah. I think I remember a classmate bringing that up in school. And I think at the time I don't think I was watching it anymore, but he was like shattered by it, Yeah. And I don't think I watched it live at the time, but I do remember like the reaction, just talking about it at school. That was a big deal.
Yeah, and we learned our ABCs.
Yeah, I certainly did. I did, and I'll give Sesame Street a lot of credit for that.
Sure. Some of our numbers.
Yeah, some of our numbers.
Well, they only go up to a certain point.
Well, that's true. But really, how many numbers do you need beyond a certain point?
I don't know. I don't think you need anything beyond 12, right?
Yeah, I think we learned all the important ones from Sesame Street.
Yeah, and some other things. Near and far.
Yeah.
Under and over.
Right.
Next to.
All very important concepts. Yeah, there's a lot going on, and they mixed it all in, so it didn't. And plus, I guess when you're a certain age, it's easier to slip those things in. But I mean, that's one of the essential points, right? Is that people realized how much kids were retaining like information from advertising that was not aimed directly at them. Like if you put something in a song, kids are going to retain it. Like the alphabet song is a classic example. And so why not use some of those techniques in a show that's geared towards them and with some kind of educational goals beyond just like pushing merch?
Yeah, and also I know the original structure was kind of mimicking TV, and that a lot of the short pieces about letters and stuff they're like commercials, breaking up the story, or a little bit of a story. That makes a lot of sense.
So let me ask you this: you might not remember this. When you were a kid, did you look forward to the street scenes more, or like did you see like the other stuff as interrupting the street scenes, or did you?
I think it was just all. I mean, I wanted to see the Muppets, but I think it was just all a thing, all a piece.
I think that my memory is that like I consider the heart of the show was the street scenes, and like the characters, the characters. But the other segments was more like supplementing that. So to me, it was more like kind of like the storylines, I guess, and just within the show and the scenes and things like that were what I was most looked forward to, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, probably. I'm sure I liked that stuff more than say 2 minutes of flamingos.
Yeah, yeah, right. And there was maybe one exception I'll say is like, and I don't know if you would I wouldn't really consider them a street scene, but the Bert and Ernie segments.
Oh yeah,
I think those are my favorites.
I think anything
they're sort of in between.
Yeah, anything with Muppets. Yeah, that's fine. They can be about letters or about getting along. Yeah, but Bert and Ernie, of course. I think I might have been at one point a little bit scared of some of the monsters. Yeah, I don't know if I was scared of Cookie Monster, but like Harry Monster. He looks a little scary. He's actually a very nice monster. But
right. Yeah, he just has that look about him. I think Mumford kind of scared me a little bit when I was real little. Just something about not being able to see his eyes.
Yeah, he scared me because he was always talking about peanut butter.
Yeah. Yes, the dark culinary arts of conjuring peanut butter.
Oh, peanut butter.
Terrified a young way.
The Count might have scared me a little bit, too.
Yeah, I could see that.
The same episode where Maria got hired. There were like 2 different bits in there that were really just made the Count. I felt really kind of bad for him, for his affliction.
Yeah.
One is like a sketch, and I'd seen before where he hires Ernie to answer the telephone for him, but then he won't let him answer it because he has to count the rings.
Ooh.
Clearly, just debilitating.
Yeah.
And then later he's in kind of a street scene. It's cold outside, and he wants to count cold people.
Ooh.
And he stops by the fix-it shop, and they're like, no, it's warm in here. And he stops at Hooper's, and Hooper opens the window, and there are all these people in there with hot chocolate. And, like, we're all warm in here.
No.
There's no one to count. And he's already getting cold. And Mr. Hooper suggests, well, you could count yourself. But he's so cold, it takes him a while to, whoa.
Oh, gosh.
Finally, and he comes to his senses and goes inside.
Yeah. Finally, he looks like he resembles Jack Nicholson in the end of The
Yes,
Shining.
that's right.
At least he didn't try to count snowflakes.
Oh, I bet he has. Poor guy.
When Lucy and Linus were catching them,
Yeah.
they didn't have a whole lot of work to do, as I recall. There wasn't a big heavy snow flow at the time. But on Sesame Street, I think it does snow on occasion.
Based on the episodes currently on Max, that's all that happens.
Snow's a big deal, huh?
Yeah, I was looking through episodes. It's cold on Sesame Street, and I don't know, 6 or 7 episodes in a row. That might have been one of these, because they would have those occasionally, multi-day stories or something. But in 2 different seasons, it was happening.
Teddy, get down, man.
Hi, you check me out.
All right, Teddy, come on.
You're being a little bit of a close talker.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, he's just going to say hi to you. You know what I learned from watching some episodes? Cats have kittens.
Cats have kittens, yes.
And dogs have puppies.
That is true. That is true. I'm glad they sorted that out.
Goats have kids, just like you, you and me.
One thing that's interesting about thinking about the origin of Sesame Street and the purpose of it is the angle of being geared specifically or the special focus towards kids in the inner city that maybe didn't have some of the other opportunities or access to avenues of education. It's funny because that didn't hit me at all as a kid.
Right.
And now when I look back on it, I can see, it's obvious, and it's fine, that's what they were going for. But I didn't think of any of that as a kid. It just seemed to be pretty natural. I mean, I could see the setting and everything that they were going for. I recognized it and everything. It was like, cool. But I didn't notice that. A lot of that, a lot of the educational goals didn't stand out to me until years later.
Yeah.
Which is probably why they're so effective.
Yeah, I think that was part of the success, but probably one of the goals too is to not announce it, at least on the show. Mm-hmm. Kind of like the diversity of the cast. Mm-hmm. It's just, that's what it's like in the city.
Right.
You got white people and black people and Puerto Rican people and Mexican people and monsters.
That's right.
Talking birds.
Yeah.
And a frog. Mm-hmm. It's just how it is. And one thing I noticed, the set design fit right in with Chico and the Man and All in the Family.
Yeah.
Messy.
That's right.
Kind of dingy and cluttered. Cooper's store is kind of a much more of a catch-all store. Now the show, and this is not a criticism, but it's very clean looking. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot dingier. Mm-hmm. But then I think in Street Gang they show some footage of New York at the time, and it's just it looks like New York.
Yeah. Messy, cluttered, and just
some
just
graffiti
with its own character and everything. Yeah, that is true.
And I liked it. And the other thing I liked about seeing some of these street scenes is, despite the kind of maybe lack of stories, just it felt like, you're just kind of going to hang out. Oh, let's go see what Luis doing.
Yeah, I kind of like that. Just slice of life.
Segments.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
And gradually kind of expanding, the neighborhood and seeing what's going on, and just learning daily routines of different people and what their occupations are and things like that.
And sometimes just hanging out with the adults, which I guess didn't test well. But now I appreciate it more. And I probably took some comfort in it then too. Kids do want to be around grown-ups.
Yeah, I would have no problem seeing 5 minutes of just Bob and Gordon sitting on a stoop, shooting the breeze.
Right.
And every now and then you do get segments with just the two of them,
Yeah.
And I enjoy those.
Yeah. Now, since you bring up Gordon, I feel in my mind Roscoe Warman is my Gordon.
Yeah.
But it's possible I had a little bit of the other Gordons too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Matt Robinson, what I looked up, left after season 4. So
it's pretty early.
I don't think. And then there was an in-between Gordon.
Yeah.
Who I don't really remember.
He seems to be the real forgotten one.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming once they left, you wouldn't see that they wouldn't reuse segments with them.
I don't think so.
Whereas, like Gordon, they could use Gordon segments for years.
Yeah.
Or, Ross
Bob
Gorman segments.
Yeah, Ross Gorman. So, yeah, I think he's my Gordon.
Yeah, same here. And
I don't remember much, the Roosevelt Franklin character, but he was in one of the season 7 episodes I watched. So, I don't know. There's stuff in Street Gang about them getting rid of that character and that kind of being one of the reasons Matt Robinson left. But then maybe they just brought it back after a certain point.
Yeah.
Just because I don't remember him enough. When I saw that segment, I was like, well, what is going on here?
I think he's the kind of character, like, you could see a lot of people today, and I think that this does happen, they discover him, like, on YouTube or whatever, and they're like, whoa, this guy's cool,
Yeah.
And they want to find more Roosevelt Franklin segments,
Right,
because they are different than what you'd expect.
Yeah, and they explain that. So Matt Robinson was also a writer on the show, and he seems like an interesting guy, and was a host of a black-oriented talk show in Philadelphia before he went to Sesame Street. But he developed this Roosevelt Franklin character to talk like and behave like black kids, and then they got pushback from black parents about being a little too street, I guess.
Yeah, which is it's interesting. So they dropped the character, and I mean, they talk about the best of intentions. I think that's the case where it did, but who knows? To me, he's one of the great kind of forgotten characters. But as a kid, I don't remember seeing him regularly at all. I'm sure I didn't. It wasn't until later, like I saw, who's this? And learn more about this character. It's like, that's interesting. And I will say, we were talking a little bit before we started here that there's a lot of footage available online, many different sources. It's very easy to find. Maybe not specific full episodes. You might have troubles finding those. But as far as like the segments you remember, I think there's a pretty good chance, Mike, that if there's something, you listen to us and you think, boy, I'd like to see the segment where blah, 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 you'll find it pretty easily. If you know enough to do an adequate search, you should find it within minutes.
I think so.
Which is good. I mean, it's good that despite, as much as they've searched for ways to monetize it, they seem to have had a very light touch on people posting stuff from the archives, which is good because much of it is not available anywhere else that I know of right now. And through the years, they trickled out some stuff. They had some DVD releases of the older material. For a while, they were on Noggin. They had reruns of it on there when Noggin was a thing. And there was a lot of episodes on Max when that first launched. It was part of their library. And then they disappeared, and there's never really been a good reason why.
No. Yeah. Now there's a smattering of ones from our era, and then a pretty good amount from the last, 15 years. On the other hand, if it were all available, we might have had a lot more trouble narrowing it down because,
right.
I mean, the episode we're doing, to put it into perspective, is from 1976 and it's episode 900.
Yeah.
And they're around 4,800 now, I think.
Wow.
So
yeah, and I'll say you picked a good one, my friend.
I was glad I watched.
Yeah, this is a great episode.
Oh, yeah.
And it features all the kinds of stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Typical great assortment, but with a very strong main segment anchoring it.
Yeah, which is a little different for for that period. And according to Muppet Wikia, an excellent resource for all of this, if you can deal with the ads. Although I only learned now if you sign up for free, you don't get ads.
Ah, nice.
So I'm now registered. I've got the app.
Ah, very cool.
It's a good resource. Not just that, it's the fandom. So depending on the show or whatever, they're often a good resource there. They said this is based on a record.
Yeah, I saw that, and it makes sense. I don't think I had that specific record, but that's pretty cool that they did it. It started as a record, and they decided, hey, we could do something with this.
Yeah. So, I don't know if you were able to find the date and all of that.
Actually,
kind of
I was.
Yeah, good.
And I thought we'd do something a little bit different. The air date that I found in several places for this particular episode, the premiere date, and granted, it probably changed based on different PBS stations, but the one I found seemed to be pretty solid was Friday, April 23rd, 1976. And I thought we could look at what was on from 12 to 3 o'clock, so during that daytime period. And as a resource, I used the New York Times, which actually had 2 PBS stations and listed in their listings, as well as the major networks. So I'll run down real quick what was on. So starting at noon, Channel 13, one of the PBS stations there, Decades of Decision, which I believe was a bicentennial-themed series hosted by Hank Fonda, and I think it was a mini-series with a American history theme. Couldn't find much information about that, though. Channel 31, the other PBS station, had Electric Company. CBS had Young and the Restless. ABC had Let's Make a Deal. NBC at noon was The Magnificent Marble Machine, which was a game show with an elaborate kind of electronic pinball type set, which the show tanked. Yeah, it didn't last. 12:30 on Channel 13, the one PBS is still showing Decades of Decision. 31 had, I'm going to butcher it, Caros Colendas. Maybe I might have done that pretty well. Anyways, it was another children's show on PBS, and it was geared towards bilingual kids. I believe it was based in or produced in Texas, is where the show was created. And there's still examples of that survive, but it had like cast of characters and maybe kind of a similar approach to Sesame Street with a special focus on Spanish-speaking kids. Okay. Very interesting. CBS had Search for Tomorrow. ABC had All My Children. NBC had a show called Take My Advice, which was based in California, and it was a program where somebody hosted and they brought on like celebrities and prominent people to give advice to people that wrote in with problems or something like that.
Annie Youngman.
Yeah, of course. Please. So Channel 13 had Electric Company at 1 o'clock. 31, Sesame Street. CBS had Tattletales, the game show with our friend Bert Convy. ABC, Ryan's Hope. And NBC, Somerset, which was a soap opera that was a spinoff of Another World. Then at 1:30, we go Sesame Street on 13. CBS had As the World Turns. ABC, a game show called Rhyme and Reason, which was hosted by Bob Eubanks and seemed to be built around Nipsey Russell, the poet laureate of television at the time, of course. And it was like kind of a match game style game show where you're coming up with like rhymes. And I was watching a little bit of a segment that had Richard Dawson, J.P. Morgan, Nipsey Russell, and a few other people. It had a pretty Adrian Barbeau. It had kind of an interesting cast. NBC had Days of Our Lives, and then we go to 2 o'clock. 31 had Mr. Rogers. CBS had the $20,000 Pyramid. ABC, General Hospital. NBC, Another World. And keep in mind, a lot of the soap operas were only half hour at the time, not an hour. And then finally at 2:30. Okay, here's where it gets a little bit interesting on PBS. At 13 on Channel 13. This is a New York PBS station. Mao's China.
Kids were rushing home from school to watch Mao's China.
That's right. I'm assuming it's Chairman Mao, of course. I don't know that for sure because I couldn't find any information about that program. On the other PBS station, In and Out of Focus, which I don't know what that's about. I'm assuming it's some kind of like public affairs show.
That's what it sounds like.
I couldn't find any information on it. CBS had Guiding Light. ABC had Break the Bank, another game show. I believe that one was hosted by Tom Kennedy and had kind of a Hollywood Squares type format to that. NBC,
what was it called again?
Break the Bank.
Break the Bank. Tom Kennedy, right?
Not from those Kennedys.
Oh, okay.
NBC had The Doctors, another soap. And one note on primetime television tonight, because it ties in with two of the programs that we've talked about this season. The Donnie and Marie show that night had as a guest star Jack Albertson.
Oh,
so
wow.
There we go.
Yeah. Well, once again, Donnie and Marie embracing youth culture.
Yeah. That was an afternoon of daytime television in New York there.
Eclectic as New York itself.
Yes, and Sesame Street, note, was on both PBS stations, but at different times. So it could be on all different times a day. I think when I grew up, I think it was on twice a day in my market. So that was common for it to be get a morning spot and an afternoon spot.
Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking we talk about the extended street scene and then hit some of the highlights of the rest.
Yeah,
rather
that sounds
than
good.
every little segment.
Yeah, and I was surprised. I was not expecting the street scene to play out the way it did. Mm-hmm. And I'd looked, and it was about like 22 minutes. Yeah, which was uninterrupted by other segments. That was something else for that era, wasn't it?
Yeah,
not common at all. And it didn't feel like it. I mean,
no,
it was natural. It's so many things going on, but
and it is a bit of a callback to a couple other episodes.
That's right.
We've done this season.
Yes.
So so it's called Sing Along in Bert and Ernie's Bathroom.
That says it all.
Yep. So it opens with, after the theme song, with Bert taking a bath, nice bubble bath in the bathroom, and he is singing, kind of singing the Sesame Street theme song. And then, naturally, Ernie pops in and brings a piano with him. Because he thought, if Bert's singing, might as well have a sing-along.
Yeah.
And Bert is also naturally a little bit annoyed. Mm-hmm. So then Ernie starts playing this song called I Refuse to Sing Along. Bert does sing along and issue his refusal by singing. But it's pretty cool because there's like a counterpoint thing.
Yeah.
Ernie's singing about the fun of singing and Bert is singing about not wanting to sing.
Yeah, it's very well done.
It sets the stage, this is like taking the Ernie trolling Bert concept to new heights. And then it goes even further because David comes in with a guitar.
Right.
He's like, you guys still doing this sing along?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Come on in. And I think Bert's a guitar.
Yeah, Bert's facial expressions are great in this whole segment.
Yeah, and little asides.
Yeah, they're classic.
And really, because all you can see there is a little bit of his shoulders and his head.
Yeah. His discomfort is evident.
And understandable, Mm-hmm. I mean, sometimes It's not easy to side with Bert, but
No, this time he's got a big case.
although he is a stick in the mud, but Ernie tends to ignore his requests.
That's right.
And here in this episode, everyone ignores everything he says.
Yeah. There's a lack of respect, and I was actually kind of wondering about that, like what the point of that was. Well, let me.
Yeah.
I'll bring that up later. Let's go through what happens.
Yeah. So yeah, he comes in and then quickly followed by Gordon with an upright bass. Bob and Maria, and Bert gets very embarrassed that Maria's there. They might see something.
Sort of stay on the other side of the room. And Gordon's upright bass is almost as big as that piano, I think.
Yeah. Right.
It's quite a thing.
And then, against Bert's wishes, they launch into the classic earworm John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, which I have to say, I never heard as a kid except for on this one commercial for a record.
Really?
That would play on TBS all the time.
Huh, like some fun time kids record.
And it was all kids' songs.
Yeah, 20 of the greatest hits. Sing along with.
Right.
No, I do remember it, but I'll say this. If you don't want to sing, if you're not in the mood for music, this is a song that's going to take you over the edge.
Yeah.
It's not what you want to hear at this point,
Right.
I'd say.
And I would say it's not the most annoying song. Or not annoying, but it's not the one that stuck with me after the whole thing. You know, that ends, and I don't know if Bert has started asking for a towel yet, but that's a running gag.
Yeah.
I think he does it right after Big Bird comes in with a glockenspiel.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, you know, if you're going to be at the sing-along, you got to sing a song. So Big Bird sings a song called Cheer Up. The others play along and sing along a little bit, but it's mostly a Big Bird.
Yeah, it is, and this is the first inkling that maybe that this is some kind of conspiracy.
Yes.
Because he specifically says that, you know, maybe this will cheer Bert up.
Yeah.
Although the unhelpful caption said tear Bert up, which I don't think that was Big Bird's goal to
No, it might have done it.
But yeah, it seems like Big Bird's coming in with an agenda.
Yeah.
Not just to sing for the joy of it, but specifically for Bert's benefit.
Yeah.
To get things going.
Like, yeah, Ernie was worried.
Yeah.
He's been in the bathroom whenever he's in there sulking.
Yeah. Although, which is funny because, as we saw, Bert was like as happy as he's ever been.
Yeah.
To be by himself.
And
he was enjoying it.
If anybody understands the joy of a bath, it's Ernie.
That's
Mr.
right.
Rubber Ducky himself.
Excellent point. You know, and that reminds me, too, and maybe this is one of the shows you're talking about. On Chico and the Man, we saw, you know, the man taking a bath at the end of that episode.
That's right. I was thinking that because, yeah, there's just a bathtub sitting out. And their bathroom is a bathtub and a shower. Yeah. Which a lot of places do.
Well, it reminds me of bathtub culture.
Yes.
Which doesn't seem to be a thing where you'd have like a freestanding bathtub in the middle of some, you know, the floor or some room.
Yeah.
You just don't get that anymore.
No. Get this crazy stuff where it's hooked up to plumbing.
Yeah.
And also, it's very quickly becoming the Marx Brothers stateroom thing, which on the Muppet Wikia, they actually have a quote from the guy that put the record together, and that was his inspiration.
And that's a great inspiration.
Yes.
I could see, it's much like Who's on First. I could see any show that wants to take a stab at this, I say go for it.
Yes.
I'll probably enjoy it on some level, yes.
The Sopranos should have done it. Everybody crowding into Polly Walnut's bedroom or something. Like even their enemies.
Yeah.
What are you doing here?
What are you doing here? Got every right to be here.
Anyway, after that, the count arrives. And the first thing he does is starts counting the bathroom tile.
Yeah, boy. Yeah. He goes right in on it.
Yep. So they try to distract him from that by getting him to sing a song. So he starts singing a song, which of course is counting. It's counting how many bats he has in his belfry. And at some point, they're like, this is never going to end.
Yeah, it's funny that everybody else finds the counting songs as tedious as many others might.
I like because the Bob and David and Maria all kind of share a look. And David and Maria go over and pick up the count and throw him in the shower and turn on the water.
Yes.
And he's counting the drops of water.
Yeah, that might be worse than snowflakes.
Yeah. And then Grover. This seems like a perfect event for Grover.
Yeah.
He has a banjo that he borrowed, and he sings a very silly version of On Top of Old Smoky. It's a sing-along.
Yes, I love it. And he's doing the thing where he shouts out the words before, and everybody else like follows his lead.
Right. And it's I didn't write down any of them, but there's stuff about suspenders, and I don't know, and he's missing stuff, and at the end he comes home to his mommy, and she has all this stuff.
Yeah, a little bit of a different take on Top of Old Smoky.
Yeah.
I like the fact that On Top of Old Smoky is such a staid, serious song that that apparently in Grover's world it lends itself to parody, you know, or some kind of send up. I thought it was a pretty whimsical song as it is, but no, this is it's time for an offbeat version of On Top of Old Smoky.
Yeah, forget the spaghetti and
That's right, all covered with cheese. Top of spaghetti, all covered with cheese.
Yeah.
That might have been on one of those albums.
Probably was.
Fun Time Records presents Kids' Favorite.
And we should mention Grover, I think, is on the cover of one of the classic albums, the Saturday Night Fever parody.
Ah, okay.
He's in the John Travolta pose.
Nice, yes.
And after that song, Bert says, "Please give me my pants."
I was feeling for him here.
Yeah.
I'm just looking for a little dignity. And,
I know.
And everybody's just like, they're not
like,
blatantly
yeah.
ignoring him, but they're finding credible ways to not address it, you know, just by whether somebody else comes in and they can turn their attention to that character, or they're just launching into another song. You know, they're finding ways to not meet his demands.
There's a lot of after one more song, I'll get you that towel.
Yeah.
And then David leads everyone in a song called "Stand Up and Pinch Your Nose," which is pretty fun. I mean, I don't always go for that kind of song, but I just enjoy the gusto, and the way like Maria is playing to the camera. Mm-hmm. She's like pointing it, like it's like everybody's sneakers stand up and pinch your nose, and she's pointing to her sneakers, and pulling the waistband of her jeans.
Yeah,
you know, and can't beat the line. What was it? Everybody with your stand up and touch your fro.
Yeah. And it's funny, like Gordon makes a little gesture over his head, and Bob like kind of looks at him, you know, and points a little bit, you know. That's right. Yeah, it was fun.
But then Big Bird's a little down because he doesn't have sneakers or jeans or a fro.
No.
And so Bob's like, okay, we'll do a guessing game. Of course, Bob, the great tenor.
Yeah, and he gets a good big spotlight with a lot of close-ups in this song.
He does. And his song is called "I'm Going Somewhere," and I like that one too. It's kind of a John Denver-y kind of thing, but he's traveling somewhere, but it's a lot of, you know, you might see this, but you can't get there by railroad and all this, and you know you're supposed to guess, and the answer is that he's going to sleep.
Yeah, it was a good finish to the song. I was satisfied with how that ended.
Yes, called Bob McGrath. And then now this is the song that really stuck with me.
Okay.
I mean, for like a week I've been singing this. Gordon begins it, and it's the song called, what's the name of this song? At least I think that's what it's called. I don't know.
Yeah, I think and I like it because like Gordon's like stumbling for it, and Bob's like, "What's your song?
Yeah,
how do you not know?"
Right.
And then they realize, you know, what it is.
Yeah. And I wonder if this song is the first use of something as a lyric.
May well be. Yes, it may well be.
But everybody joins in that, and then right at the end, Mr. Hooper comes in. What's the name of that song?
Yeah.
And they're all excited to see Mr. Hooper. And then they kind of go back into it. After I should say, the Count bursts out of the shower and jokes that the song is called 1,000,001 Bats in My Belfry.
At least he's got a sense of humor about his condition.
Right. So then they go back into the song, and then eventually Bert finally gets into it, and he starts singing the famous song "Sing," and then right at the end, Snuffy's trunk pops out above the shower curtain.
Yeah, that was a nice little cameo.
Of course, nobody sees that but Big Bert.
It was good, and Bert's really enjoying himself. So that makes me wonder. Well, was this the whole purpose of this was to get Bert happy and get Bert participating?
Yeah, I don't know if Ernie's operating on that level.
Yeah, I don't think Ernie is.
I mean, maybe just he needs to be cheering up, but I feel like Ernie's he's just always following his impulses. Mm-hmm. That's part of why they don't get along.
Well, to me, thinking that there's some higher purpose makes it easier for me to accept the fact that all the adults are oblivious to the fact that Bert is pleading for first privacy and then at least a towel.
Yeah,
and they're just ignoring him.
Yeah, or and maybe just like a collective, kind of like they treat Oscar too.
Yeah.
Like, a good-natured trying to get him to loosen up a little bit.
And it works out well, and it becomes this nice little event. Yeah. And, one thing that's good about this segment is it may be 22 minutes, and we just named, about 6 or 7 songs at least, but the songs are short enough that they don't overstay their welcome. Like, they don't do, marathon versions of John Jacob, Jingleheimer Schmidt. I think they hit just the right amount of time on almost all these songs.
Yeah, and it's funny, and I don't really think it has a lot of educational.
No, I don't know what the education educational goals are
No.
in this segment, but it doesn't matter to me.
Nope.
I liked it, and yeah, and we've pointed out like a lot of the ways in which all the characters interact with each other. This is a really good showcase for Sesame Street, and one reason I'm glad you picked it is because we see so many of these characters together, and I like scenes where where so many characters are interacting together. To me, it expands the world and makes you really feel like they're all connected in this community, and this is a good example of that. That yeah, they are, and they hang out together, and sometimes a bunch of them hang out together, even under ridiculous circumstances.
I mean, they live in the same building too, and Bert and Ernie live in the basement, which I think I'd forgotten, but
Okay.
just that's a cool city thing too. I like the basement with the half window.
Yeah.
That seems very New York. Was it in Street Gang, or maybe it's in the Henson documentary? But I think it's in Street Gang, where they talk about, sometimes Jim Henson would say, "Oh, what are we educating for?" And John Stone would, joy. And I think that's what this is.
Right.
It's just about educating people about being happy.
Yeah, that's a good point, and mission accomplished here.
Yeah. So the rest of it is the short segments. The letters are M and B, not chosen on purpose.
That's right.
And the number 6, I think, was that the only number?
Seven
Or
is there as well.
That's right, the beautiful number 7. And so I wrote down some highlights, but if I don't, mention something that you were thinking about.
Yeah, some of these are literally like maybe like 10-second segments.
Yeah,
but
just little animated things. Or I did write down there's the animation with sand, just because I remembered that. Yeah, which I believe they used twice.
They did, yeah.
And there's a fun little segment with Cookie Monster, and he's going to eat a cookie. No shock there. And this very wide-eyed, sad-looking girl Muppet comes up.
Yeah, and there's like this mournful violin music playing.
Yeah.
As she comes in, she's like looks like a peasant from like a
a
Russian novel.
Right, and that's what the music feels like.
Yeah.
Russian. And he kind of looks at her, and she's walking around him, and finally he breaks a cookie in half and gives her half, and then he eats his half in his normal style, and then she does the same thing, and he seems a little surprised by that. And that's it, but it was good. Yeah. It's always good to see him.
Good bit for him. And can I mention a couple of segments that came before that that I enjoyed? The Flamingo film.
You did enjoy that.
I did enjoy that, but I enjoyed it because it reminded me of something that I always liked about Sesame Street. It's, just like a couple minutes of flamingos.
Yeah.
But it's punctuated with kids just saying random stuff, off camera.
Yeah.
Just like, hey, he's going to fly. Or, he's got long legs. That's a flamingo. And just all this stuff, like shouting things out. I was kind of like those segments. Just like, and to me, like they strike me as really funny nowadays. It's like, just how did they do these? Did they actually have like a bunch of kids?
Right.
I know they didn't, but it'd be great if they just had kids like making live reactions as they showed this footage or whatever.
They might have.
I just sort of like that kind of aspect to it. It's a little bit loosey goosey and just again gives something different to the show.
Yeah, and that they back then were using just not random kids, but non-professional
non-actors.
Non-actors, and a lot of times I think they're probably the kids of crew members or something.
Yeah,
probably definitely something like that.
Yeah. Maybe, yeah.
Got their kids, hey, watch this film about flamingos.
And I also liked the piñata segment.
Yeah.
They show like a party, and again, there's no narration, but it seems like fun.
Yeah.
There's some music, and it just seems like chaos, when they break the piñata and stuff. It's just like, oh, this is kind of cool. This is something that, just in a relatively subtle way, just showing something that from one specific culture that's common to one culture that other kids might not see. And it's like, oh, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I know when I was a kid, I only saw piñatas on TV and like read about them in comic books. I never actually experienced that.
In elementary school, one of my classes, we did a piñata. I don't know why. I guess for the same reason, to introduce you to something different.
Yeah.
But we made the piñata, paper mache, tissue paper and stuff. So there was the art project, and then we got to beat the snot out of it.
Yeah. And of course, nowadays, if you had a piñata segment, it would end with the hapless father getting hit in the crotch with a stick. The blindfolded kid missing the piñata and the father doubling over.
Yeah.
That's not how they did it on Sesame Street in 1976.
No, this looks like they filmed an actual party.
Yes. So, okay, I just wanted to mention those.
Yeah, no, those
I really
are good
enjoyed
ones.
those ones, yeah.
I think the next one I wrote down is, our buddy Luis.
Yes, the late...
Captain Under Wonder.
Yes, the late friend of the show, Emilio Delgado.
Yes. And he is dressed up as a superhero, and he's standing on Sesame Street, and I think it's David doing voiceover and getting him to go under various things, a table, and I forget what else, something else. And then there's a tire swing, and he can't fit, and then he figures out he uses his Captain Under Wonder superpowers to shrink himself so that he can fit. And it's a kind of a fun use of, I guess, some like blue screen or something. whatever, chroma key, whatever you want to call it. And good pantomime by Emilio Delgado.
Yeah, he throws himself into it like he does in so many of these segments. I've seen some other old ones with him, and he's always he's very animated and just seems to be having a good time.
Yeah.
Mike, is there any truth to the rumor that CBS optioned a television movie for Captain Wonder that would have been directed by Rod Holcomb?
I don't know. We should investigate. Get the crack research team on that.
Yeah, it would have made a nice companion, I think, for Doctor Strange and Captain America.
You always, every team needs a guy who can go under stuff.
Yeah, that's a great skill. Yeah.
In fact, the next segment I have written down covers that very fact.
Yeah, that's
idea.
Exactly right. Yes.
So Maria is telling us the story of the king's problem. So we go to this kingdom, and a number of the people of the kingdom, the Muppets of the kingdom, have gathered because they've heard the king has a problem. And one of them's, well, I'm the biggest, so I can solve it. And another one's the fastest, and another one is the smartest. And then this little woman or girl, I'm not sure what it's supposed to be, but comes in, and they're like, well, and she's like, I can't do anything. I'm just small, and they don't think she can do anything for the same reason,
right? And
because they're very haughty. And then the king comes in, and he's a guy smiley type puppet. So he's got this problem, and once again, they're, I'm the biggest, I'm the fastest, I'm the smartest, and he explains that he dropped his crown and it rolled under the throne, and the only person that can help him is the smallest person. So she goes under the throne, and she gets the crown, and everyone is all excited. The big guy's going to carry her around on his shoulders. The fast guy's going to take the news all around town, and the smart guy's going to write a poem.
Very nice.
And the moral of the story is that sometimes small is the most important.
Yeah.
That's a nice little story.
Good.
Especially for kids.
Educational goal fulfilled in this segment.
Yes.
I like this segment.
Yeah. I think having Maria do these stories is nice because, she always makes you feel at ease.
Yeah. Lori said that Maria was always her favorite. She loved Maria.
I think
she
maybe I
resonated
had
with
like a little boy crush on her. I'm not certain, but I think probably I did.
Yeah, makes sense.
She seemed like a cool babysitter or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Cousin. There's kind of like the Flamingos thing. There's film of like a guy unloading a truck.
Yeah, they count to 20. I guess they're counting boxes.
Right.
But yeah, it was kind of odd footage.
I liked seeing the sort of conveyor belt thing he's using. I don't know. I don't think that's the right name for it, but like a metal kind of thing with rollers on it, and he's sliding the boxes along it.
Yes.
I feel like stuff like that. Even though I didn't love the segment, is kind of cool. Like another episode I watched, they had a film of a factory making gum and kids explaining what was going on.
Yeah.
Oh, that's that is cool stuff for kids to see, just to see the world and how things work like that. I think.
I mean, like insight into shipping and packing logistics.
Yes.
Might not be as glamorous as making crayons or something like that.
No.
But it's still interesting.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool. Yeah.
That's a good way to count.
Yeah, sure.
Numeration.
Yes.
And then after that, we get the first of 2 Kermit the Frog segments, and also the first of 2 Grover segments. And this one, Kermit is going to demonstrate light and heavy, and then Grover shows up and wants to help him, and Kermit doesn't really want his help, but he takes it.
Yeah.
And so Kermit is going to demonstrate light. He has one of Big Bert's feathers, and then he tells Grover to go pick up the piano. Which Grover does with some effort. And then Kermit has a ping pong ball, and Grover has some fun saying ping pong ball. And then he's like, well, that was kind of heavy, though. You're going to make me pick up like a huge boulder? And Kermit's like, yeah, go pick up that huge boulder over there. So he does, and he carries it off behind Kermit and then off screen and drops it on the piano.
Yeah. Unfortunate for Grover that they have a very static camera in this segment.
Yes.
Because Kermit's asking him to bring it so everybody can see. So he's got to pull it up. But yes.
That's right.
But he does, the smashes the piano off screen. And Kermit reacts.
Yeah. And so then he comes back, and he's huffing and puffing and everything, and he's like, okay, I want to demonstrate light and you demonstrate heavy. Kermit agrees, and he goes and he just brings back a big sandwich. Grover is like, well, that's not the same thing. It's like a huge boulder or a piano. And he's like, well, it's got meat and this and that.
Yeah, all kinds of toppings. Look like a good sandwich.
It did until you mentioned some of the ingredients, but. And he's there just kind of looking at it and smacking his lips. And Grover has to go get the light thing, which is a balloon, a helium balloon. It ends up carrying him away. So an excellent combination of education and humor.
It is. And you know what else I like about this segment is it shows how versatile the characters are. Because a lot of times you would see Grover is the one like exasperating somebody, like with like Fat Blue when Grover's the waiter, you know, and he's like sort of just like doing things, you know, and maybe not really knowing what he's doing or whatever. And also a lot of times Kermit is the one who's being flustered by circumstances. In this case, he is kind of the one, you know, driving the action, but either way it works.
Yes. Yeah. It's like those. It's like one of those rare times where Bugs Bunny is on the receiving end of things. But yes, they're good, interestingly good foils for each other. But Kermit, you know, he's still being classic Kermit straight man. Yeah. But more like a butt app. Yeah. Right. There's also like this little animated thing
with a scale.
Yes.
That's showing heavy and
light.
light.
They definitely wouldn't do that anymore.
No, with heavy. They're all people getting on the scale. Yeah. I mean, yeah, especially like maybe if you did it with Muppets or something, but it's animated, but you actually see, you know, there's large people getting on the scale and saying heavy, you know?
Yeah, and there's no judgment. It's just...
No, it stood out. It definitely, this would not conform to today's educational standards, as they would say, or something
body
like that.
positivity.
Yeah.
And then to me, and this is another one, this is definitely one I remembered, classic. With Herbert Birdsfoot demonstrating M sounds, and then Grover comes up and he keeps going, and it turns out because he had peanut butter and it stuck to the roof of his mouth.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Was this Herbert guy? Was he in other segments? I didn't remember him at all.
I don't remember him at all.
Character.
He must have been like I think this segment is. Right? I can look it up.
Oh, I'd be interested because with a name like Herbert Birdsford, I hope he does pop up more than once. Be ashamed to waste a great moniker like that.
Herbert Bird. He was introduced in 1970. Yeah, usually as a lecturer usually with Grover as his assistant. Kermit wasn't in the second season, so he was there for the second season.
Oh, what was Kermit filming a movie the second season or something? What was it for that?
Yeah, good number, maybe like 15 segments.
Okay, so it was like a recurring thing. That's interesting.
Yeah, I wonder where Kermit was. Maybe they were filming one of their attempts at a Muppet Show pilot or something. Maybe they're just like, we don't want to use him this time. Oh, he needs a break. And they had a couple fairy tale specials with Kermit. But I don't know why he couldn't be in Sesame Street.
Yeah.
I mean, Jim Henson was there.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
Yeah.
And speaking of Kermit, I have, unless there's something else in there, but I was going to jump ahead to Kermit the Frog, smart person.
Yeah, there was one sort of interesting thing just showing a marching band. I guess they just make like a triangle, yeah. You know, and it was just another kind of just visually interesting kind of thing with the very young kids in the marching band. It wasn't like a high school marching band. I think they were younger than that, but you know, interesting. Okay. But yeah, this segment, I don't remember this being a thing either. This smart person thing.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
It like starts with voiceover and kind of music. I mean, it seems like kind of like a Private Eye noir kind of thing at first. Like, oh, this is the street I live on. Yeah. I solve problems. I'm a smart person. And he's got a funny hat on and a coat. And then Luis, or Emilio Delgado, comes in again. He's not Luis. He is...
Sonny Bono.
Sonny Bono. Yes, he's got a giant mustache. And some pretty outlandish clothes.
Yes, he's Max Ferbal-Femur.
Yes.
I believe.
I think that's right. And he's laughing. He's very... Well, he says he's scared, but he's laughing and smiling. Kermit, the smart person, explains to him that he doesn't know the meaning of the word fear. And then he talks about I forget the name of the monster, but the Wooga. It
was like the Wooga Wagga, I think.
Yeah, and by the end of it, Max is scared.
Yeah, he does know.
He leaves terrified, and Kermit now he does know the meaning of the word fear.
Yeah,
it's pretty menacing.
It was.
It is a funny but odd segment.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
I don't know if I'd want to go to Kermit the Frog, smart person.
No, I don't either. But I'm glad that Luis, who was conspicuous by his absence in the opening segment, gets a couple of nice showcases in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, I assume there's, maybe he was off filming a Lou Grant or something.
It could be.
You'd think he would be perfect for that sing along, but at least David had the guitar front.
Right.
Covered. Yeah. And quickly, there's a letter B segment, and the most notable thing there, of course, is the voiceover by Casey Kasem.
He was everywhere back then, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. And a B segment with the typewriter.
Oh, yeah.
Which I definitely remember too. Yep. And then the last scene, we're back in the bathroom, and Bert admits to Ernie, everyone else is gone, that he did end up having a good time, but he's kind of glad that everybody's gone now, and So Ernie's going to take the piano away, and Bert's happy to be alone again. And then he hears a marching band, and Ernie explains that he forgot. He invited the University of Michigan marching band. They must have gotten there late.
Yeah.
And Bert's just like, oh, whatever. Come on in. And as they're kind of panning out on the 123 building, and you just hear him saying all this stuff. Can you make the shape of a pigeon? And then the count does the sponsor, the letter number sponsors.
And then a in-credit sequence that I wasn't familiar with.
Yes, this is just like a steering, hands on a steering wheel.
Yeah, with just a variation of the theme song. I was very disappointed that we don't get to cover. There's a name for it. I found out the end music. It's like funky something or other.
Right.
The one that they used, I don't know when they began. They must have began not too long after this, right? Doing the music at the end credits with the horns and the. Yeah. I don't remember the name of it. It's funky something.
I saw it somewhere too,
and I love that. It's like, to me, that's the best Sesame Street music ever.
Yeah.
Ever, and I think it's by Joe Raposo.
Yes, and I found the opening credits a little weird. I mean, I expect like kids running or whatever that part, but it's like out in the country and Big Bird's riding in a handsome cab.
Yeah, I don't know how
what
long
is
they
happening.
Used these particular credits, but they were not familiar to me at all.
Yeah, and of course, Max is trying to rush you to watch the next episode. But
yeah,
we didn't really talk about Joe Raposo, but of course, one of the main songwriters for the show, and wrote "Sing" and what's the name of that song, and of course, "It's Not Easy Being Green" and all sorts of things.
Yeah,
and even just those like instrumental things in the films and all that sort of old timey music. And,
yeah, very talented man, and the documentary, it uses a lot of archival footage from all over the place, and it doesn't label it. It doesn't identify it in the movie.
Right.
But he has some very perceptive comments.
Yes.
And in a way, like as far as like an on-camera presence, he's almost like the heart of the show. As far as like some of the stuff he says, it's very effective. So
yeah, but that's it.
Yeah, I mean, great episode, and it's funny because like when you see these old episodes, like they're almost a legit like 60 minutes, right? They're like maybe 50 some minutes.
Yeah.
But they fly by pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Part of it because like the short segments and everything, but part of it's just because it's so entertaining and there's so much going on that nothing overstays its welcome, like I said.
Right. Great show.
It really is.
I feel like, we have some big baddie competition for best series, I think.
I don't know if we mentioned this, but this is our series finale.
Season finale.
Or season finale. Apologies.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, no, we plan to be around as long as Sesame Street.
We do.
Well, yeah, we're only about 4,600 episodes short of them. I think we could catch up to them if we pick up the pace a little bit.
Yeah, I think we've done about a season's worth. Maybe a little more.
Yeah. Well, we also like to have that blend of education and entertainment for the
that's right.
for our listeners.
It's seamless.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. But yeah, it's been a great season, and want to thank everybody for going with us. And yeah, it's been quite a journey. And yes, our road took us all the way to Sesame Street.
That's right. And if you're listening to this, of course, as Rick always says, you're hearing it live whenever it's happening.
That's right.
Whenever you're listening to it. But if you happen to be listening to this when it comes out and you live in the United States, happy Thanksgiving. I hope this is a good treat for Thanksgiving.
I think so.
Along with all your stuff in your face.
Yeah.
And of course, watching Ed McMahon.
Yeah. Sing the King of Thanksgiving.
Yeah, but yeah, it's been a good season, and we'll have the baddies a little down the road, but not too far, hopefully.
Yes, and we'll have an opportunity for you to get involved and help us choose some of the baddies.
Right, and if you want to, of course, let us know your Sesame Street memories, you can join our Facebook group if you're not already there, or just let us know. If you're in Canada, did they have Sesame Street in Canada, or did you have to watch it from Maine PBS, for instance?
Just to throw a random station out there.
Yeah. Random border state.
Yeah.
When did of course, there are international versions, Plaza Sesamo and various other ones I don't know the names of, but I know they're out there. But I probably regular Sesame Street aired places to England, maybe. Just like to hear your thoughts, and or you could drop us an email at mailbag@battleofthenetworkshows.com. Is that right?
That is correct. Mailbag@battleofthenetworkshows.com.
That's right. And of course, check out our website for detailed show notes and the YouTube playlist, which I bet will be pretty good this time around.
Yeah.
I mean, they always are.
There's thank you. There's going to be a lot to choose from and a lot to showcase.
Yeah.
Try to keep it reasonable, but you can always go through and you can always skip over stuff you're not interested in if it's too long or whatever.
That's right.
Hopefully the playlist format works for you. And I think I might put together, the more I think about it, I think we might have to do power rankings of the forgotten characters, or the characters that aren't there anymore, like who are some of my favorites. So I'd be interested to hear people's thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, you'll decide that where they're competing when you're writing it. Yeah, I'll look forward to that. Unless if Forgetful Jones writes it, then everybody's forgotten.
Everybody could, yes, that could be. That could be a theme of the season. We did a bonus episode on forgotten shows.
Yeah.
We got Forgetful Jones.
Right.
Who knows what else we'll forget by the time the baddies roll around? There might be a lot of people that are forgotten.
That's right.
It's been a long season, yes.
It has been.
We'll try not to forget anybody that's deserving.
All right. Okay. Thank you for joining us for this season, and we'll see you soon.
Battle of the Network Shows has been brought to you today by the letters B, O, T, N, and S, and by the numbers 12 and 14. Join us next time for another exciting episode of Battle of the Network Shows. Learn more, leave feedback, and suggest future episodes at battleofthenetworkshows.com. Follow us on Twitter at BatNetShows and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Battle of the Network Shows.